Hello, my name is Isha Sarpanani. I guess for my stats, my GPA was a 4.0 to 4.0 when I applied. Weighted GPA 4.68, ACT 35. And then I took around 17 APs, which is, I want to say, kind of normalish, at least at the school I went to. And I got mostly fives on all of them. And then I got, like the AP Scholar Distinction Award. And I guess something else I did was also take courses in other subjects that interested me that my school didn't offer at Stanford Online High School. So that was something else I also did to pursue some different interests. And then in school, I started a neuroscience club and recruited, like some of my friends. We made this really cool club, hosted workshops and volunteer opportunities and things like that. I was also president of my school's Science National Honor Society. So this is a pretty big club at my school, like 175 plus members. So I spent a lot of my time in high school dedicated to these two clubs. I also was in Scioli. I was on their A team and competed in like experimental design and forensics and things like that. And I did orchestra all 4 years and played violin. Some other things. So I was a neurocamp junior advisor. So this was kind of like a position I did with Rice undergrads and things. And we put together this neurocamp in the summers. I also did FARA. So FARA is like this organization dedicated to raising funds for Friedreich's ataxia. So it's like this neurodegenerative condition. So I spent a lot of time in high school fundraising for them. And then I also got some creative awards-ish where like I made some educational videos in neuro, and then I was named the People's Choice winner a couple times. And then in the summers, I did a lot of research and then physician shadowing and things like that. And then in my free time, I like playing the Veena, which is like this Indian instrument, food blogging, and I also practice Kung Fu. I think, going into high school, I did a lot of different things. Like I tried robotics, debate, different science bowl competitions and things like that. And over time, I think I just found myself enjoying like this like niche subset of bio, which was like neuro after doing this one video contest. Like I was talking about, I did some like educational video competitions, and then that opportunity kind of helped me get to the next one, because through that opportunity, I contacted like this one professor at Rice, because I live, like in Houston, because he was needed to submit that. And then from there, I found out about like different clubs there and like, high school opportunities there. And then from there, I kind of like found that I was kind of interested in neuro and I really liked exploring it, things like that. So with regards to my course selection, I mainly took a lot of like my hardest classes for some reason in my like sophomore year, and I guess kind of my freshman year. So I took like AP Chem, AP Bio in my sophomore year, and then like AP Physics my freshman year. So I had a lot of these like harder science courses out of the way, I guess. And that kind of gave me a lot more time during my junior year to dedicate to extracurriculars and things like that. So like the neuroscience club I started that in my junior year, and I spent a lot more time in junior year than I probably would have been able to do in my sophomore year. So I guess my course selection worked out for me that way. And then I guess like the reasons I wanted to take these courses at a time was just because I guess like in middle school itself, I took like the CBE for like science. So I was already like bound to take certain classes ahead of time. So it's just a matter of just convincing my counselor and then preparing for those, preparing for my sophomore year, things like that. So yeah, I would just say really think about like when you might want to do certain things. So to kind of elaborate on that, in my freshman year, I joined a lot of different clubs and things like that. And then as time went on, I thought about which clubs I really enjoyed doing and which clubs I was kind of just I don't know, following the crowd in to an extent. And I think Oliver also mentioned this, but on the Common App, you only really have 10 slots, well, 10 main slots for activities. So if you're doing like 20 clubs by the time you're in your junior year, obviously you can't even put all those clubs on your Common App. So you should start thinking about like which ones you really want to invest more time to and make a larger impact, and like, get officer positions and things like that in. So yeah, that's my tips for course selection and then extracurricular activities. For independent projects and internships, so a lot of the ones I wanted to do required you to be at least 16. So for me, that meant after my sophomore year. So yeah, I mainly started doing research like in the summer between sophomore year, junior year, and then junior year, senior year. So that also kind of plays a role into why I wanted to take AP Bio and AP Chem so early, because I thought it would give me like a good like knowledge experience, things like that, going into research, so I could understand and kind of like do better research to an extent. And then with so much going on, how did you prioritize and focus? Um, I guess I just really like sat down and thought about what I like enjoyed doing and what I didn't to an extent. And then I kind of just like prioritized the things I liked, like I said earlier. Um, so yeah, I guess my biggest piece of advice would be don't be afraid to um not push yourself, but don't be afraid to do things kind of like in an unconventional way if you're able to. So AP Bio and AP Chem, I guess for a memorable story, people used to like, because not many people do that in my school. So I guess when I did it, everyone was just like, oh my gosh, like how, like, like how are you surviving, things like that. But if you really have good like time management and like study techniques and ways to de-stress, like my way to de-stress was I don't know, like orchestra and then kung fu and things like that. So make sure you have a really balanced life in general, even if it's not just stuff you want to put on your Common App. Try to have ways to also de-stress with so much going on. So that was kind of all over the place, but that's my general piece of advice for that. Just to start off, like when I got started, well, I guess technically started on my essay at the end of my junior year, just because my AP Ling teacher at the time, like she has this assignment where you're supposed to submit like a college essay. And I guess it's just to get everyone in our class to like, like start thinking about this stuff for the summer. So that was like, I guess my first draft. And over the course of the summer, I just started like I had like a notes app in my phone where I would just like write like anytime like something kind of struck me and I was like, oh, this could be potential, like college essay material. I just write it down in case I forgot. So I think you should definitely like for rising seniors, I think that's definitely something you should try doing because oftentimes you might just like have this like sudden idea and then get, I don't know, too lazy to write it down and you would forget your idea and you'd be like, oh man, like I wish I, remembered that I could write about it. So I think that's definitely a really helpful tip that I would advise you guys to do. And then yeah, just like Oliver said as well, I think it was a lot harder than I expected because I considered myself a fairly decent writer, but then when it came to writing about myself, it took a lot more like I guess introspection. Throughout the whole college application process, writing all these essays really I think taught me more about myself in a way because I really reflected on the things I did, I don't know, the person I wanted to be, or like even the person I wanted to come off as, like why my extracurriculars are meaningful to me. And it's just all these supplementals that colleges make you write really like target your sense of identity from like so many different angles. So yeah, that's definitely like one of the harder parts of the college application process, at least in my opinion. And then how I decided on my Common App prompts, I basically so like I had all 7 prompts kind of just like out, and I left like space in between each one when I printed it out, and I just jotted down ideas for each one, and I saw which ideas kind of like I showed the ideas to like people I knew, some of my close friends and family, and I kind of like ran through the ideas with them, and then based on that I started like eliminating some and then writing a few sample essays on a couple, and then out of that I chose like one final one that I really liked and just started editing that throughout like all of senior year, and then I eventually submitted it. And then for the topics for the supplemental essays, so I already had my Common App essay pretty much done at that point. So then I started like thinking of sub ideas that I didn't really like mention, or characteristics of myself that I didn't really think my Common App essay highlighted. And then I kind of like talked about that in my supplemental essays. So this is usually like extracurriculars and things like that. So yeah. And then for the what advice you'd give to rising seniors about the essays and supplements, once again, just like Oliver also said, I would recommend that you start really early because doing this stuff isn't the kind of stuff you can really do in the last minute, because you'd want to have a nice idea that you really were able to elaborate on. If I looked at my first draft that I submitted for that AP Ling assignment, it's a lot different from the final like the final essay I ended up submitting to colleges. The topic actually surprisingly was the same, even though I thought I'd probably change it, but I ended up liking that topic. But if you look at the actual essay itself, my first essay was a lot like, like less developed, less like polished than my final one is. So that only comes with time. So I'd recommend starting early, and then the notes app thing. Yeah, so at least for me, I think the most helpful part of Kairos was definitely the sprint programs. I know they had a regular decision prep and an early decision or an early action prep. I think those 2 programs were really, really helpful during, especially my senior fall when I was writing all these essays. Especially just because you just like in your senior fall is kind of like the culmination of so many different things. So you're just like busy with a lot of different things. And I feel like these sprint programs really gave me set like deadlines to actually do it. So I didn't just like, keep postponing when I was going to edit like this essay or start this essay and things like that. So that was definitely really helpful. I remember they also offered some feedback on like a certain number of supplementals and things like that. So yeah, I think that's definitely something you could take advantage of. I think the one-to-one educators was also really helpful, especially when I was kind of finalizing my personal statement. I just wanted like someone who did not know me at all to kind of, like read this essay and give me feedback onto like what kind of person they thought I was based on this essay. So the one-to-one educators is really helpful for that too, just because it's usually someone pretty experienced, so they can kind of like, analyze and give you pretty good feedback on it. I kind of built my college list by looking at like a lot of the programs that the school offered. So I'm gonna be a pre-med studying like neuro. So I was kind of looking for schools that would, like be kind of near a big hospital and things like that to kind of, like to have shadowing opportunities, research opportunities, things like that. So that was one of the factors in my college list. So I ended up applying ED2 to Rice, mainly just because while I was writing my Rice supplemental, was back in like December, November-ish. I kind of like really liked this one essay they had for residential colleges. So when I was doing my research for the different colleges to put, like specific facts and stuff in my essay about them, I really just like the culture of the campus. And it's also like really close to where I live because I live in like the suburbs of Houston and Rice is downtown. So the location was definitely pretty convenient for me. So that was one of the factors that made me want to apply ED2 to Rice, just because I kind of figured I really wanted to go here. And it was also had a really good neuroscience department. And then, it's near the Texas Medical Center, which is in Houston too. So that's what made me want to, ED2 here. And then everything else I pretty much just applied RD2, but then I got an ED2. So then those had to be withdrawn. But that was my process. Okay, so I guess advice to improve, like study methods and time management just be to kind of set aside time. Like I kind of like make this to-do list-ish at the beginning of like especially my weekends where I have like a lot of time on my hands to like, like structure my day in a way. So yeah, that's one thing. Maybe try to have like a form of structure in your day. And another big thing is I know like especially nowadays with like social media and stuff, like your phone can be a really big distraction. So oftentimes, like, especially when I need to like really lock in and like, like work on apps or even just like study for a test, I would like chuck my phone away or put it somewhere where like I wouldn't reach it. So oftentimes I'd just be like downstairs because I usually study upstairs. And so I guess this kind of worked for me, but the inertia of having to like go all the way downstairs kind of stopped me from like using my phone, and that kind of worked for me. So yeah, just find what works for you and what's like assess what's distracting you to an extent and try to minimize that if possible. Maybe reading some I know like JHU has this one site where they have a bunch of like personal statements, and I remember I was reading them like towards the end of my junior year during the summer and stuff when I was really thinking about like what I was going to write about. Obviously don't read too many of them because it might distort, the way you write yourself, but I think just looking at them as a whole kind of showed me how like a lot of people write differently. So I think your general ability to write isn't going to really I guess like affect your admissions chances too much. I think it's more about like what you write about, because if you like once you have like a solid like content base and like a story you have to say, I think you could always like the polishing and the writing parts, you could always like ask someone for help, maybe even like a Kyros educator or things like that. But apart from that, just to generally improve yourself, I just say maybe like reading more books, reading more articles, kind of picking up on the language in that. I know I used to read a lot, especially during my like freshman and sophomore years of high school. So yeah, that's my general advice for that. Yeah, so I guess I kind of already talked about this in one of the questions earlier, but for me, it was just I really like the campus culture after doing some research on it when I was writing my essays, and like kind of like what Sarah talked about too. Rice is really close to where I live, it's the same city, so that was definitely a plus to the location. And then I guess another thing I mentioned is just like the whole like food scene in Houston. I guess like Rice Village and things like that. Since I have my own food blog, I thought that'd be really fun to expand that too. But yeah, those are the main factors that went into that decision.